Welcome to Monograph Matters. I'm talking today with Dawn Witherspoon and Rebecca White, authors of the SRCD Monograph on place-based developmental research, conceptual and methodological advances in studying youth development in context. This discussion focuses on how did this group come about. Dawn and Rebecca, so how did this group come about?
Well, I had been citing Dawn's work for quite some time, and I was watching what Dawn was doing in terms of neighborhood effects research on youth of color, in particular Black and African American youth and Latinx youth. And I was super fangirling on Dawn's work. And I just noticed that we were having some overlapping conversations across our publications. And so we started to talk at one of the conferences, SRA or SRCD, hopefully SRCD since this is Monographs. And we sat down and we just had a conversation about sort of two things that we saw happening in neighborhood effects research. And one of these things was that scholars like Dawn and me were taking a more of a what we call a cultural developmental approach to the study of neighborhoods. So neighborhood research had a multi-decade history, but a lot of it was sort of colorblind or even Eurocentric, and looked at a set of outcomes that are germane to many populations, like mental health outcomes, for example. And what some folks had started to do and move in a direction was more this cultural framework of looking at competencies and experiences that youth who experience marginalization might have in neighborhoods, and that could further expand our understanding of development and context. The other thing that we saw that was happening, and we were both interested in being a part of, and it turned out Dawn had already started some of this work, was that another group of researchers who were moving in this cultural developmental lane, and this other group of researchers were moving in this more activity space type of framework. And you'll see from our other videos and reading the monograph what an activity space framework really is. And what we thought was that these two frameworks we're going to advance the developmental sciences best if they were intertwined and if they were informing each other, so that we were both incorporating a cultural developmental perspective and an activity space perspective to study youth development and context. And so then Dawn got the great idea to apply for money.
Rebecca, I was actually fangirling over you too. I was actually intimidated and somewhat afraid to try to seek you out and talk to you about this idea, but I received a pep talk and was encouraged, and I'm so glad that I did so that we have been going along in this collaboration. First, for the funding, yes, there were multiple examples that we had of funding. Some of the individuals in my social network had created study groups, and I wanted to kind of use that as an example. And also some of my colleagues had recently received funding from the National Science Foundation through one of their mechanisms for a collaborative work group. And so that's what Rebecca and I sought out to do. We applied for a grant for a collaborative working group through the National Science Foundation. And we, talked to different people that had study groups, people that had recently put in applications, so that we could get some information about how to move forward and how to try to make our application as competitive as possible. We knew we wanted to bring together some of the great minds that were doing this work, and we wanted representation from diverse individuals with regard to discipline, with regard to rank, with regard to approach, et cetera, because we felt that having the breadth of exposure to different individuals doing this work would make the group stronger and would help us really chart a course for the next decade of research focused on place and development. So that's what we did. We wrote together. We identified numerous individuals, all of those individuals that are currently a part of the Place Dev working group that are authors on the monograph, as well as some others that were not members of the monograph. And they spanned from sociology, psychology, human development and family studies, public health, African American studies, developmental psychology, etc. And so we think by bringing individuals from across disciplines that have an or multidisciplinary approach, really will help us make this place dev working group stronger. And the result, right, is this one of these deliverables, which is the monograph, where we have this opportunity to put our ideas out there for others to use to help advance our understanding of diverse families' development, thinking specifically about the context of place as an important developmental setting.
Read more about this topic in the monograph issue, Place-Based Developmental Research, Conceptual and Methodological Advances in Studying Youth Development in Context, by Witherspoon, White, Bámaca, et al. If you like this video, consider watching our Monograph Matters playlist. For additional resources related to this and other issues of the monographs of the Society for Research in Child Development, please visit monographmatters.srcd.org.